If someone handed you the keys to a multi-million-dollar state-of-the-art sports car, you wouldn't just, like, drive it into the ground.
No, of course not. You'd be obsessed with the maintenance schedule.
Right, you'd make sure it only ever got premium fuel.
Yeah.
But imagine if you only knew how to operate the radio.
That would be a disaster.
Yeah, exactly. You're cruising down the highway, the check engine light is flashing on the dash, the alignment is pulling hard to the left, and you just turn up the volume.
Just completely ignoring the warnings.
Yeah, you push through the fatigue and you write off the stiffness, the brain fog, the poor sleep as just, well, getting older.
Which is such a grim picture, but it perfectly captures how most of us treat the most advanced self-repairing system we'll ever own.
The human body.
Exactly. The stakes here are incredibly high because the body doesn't just break down randomly, it actively responds to the environment it's in and the inputs it gets.
So those aches and that chronic brain fog.
Right, the midday crashes, all of it. They aren't just inevitabilities of aging, they are biological signals begging for a different input.
Which is our mission for today's deep dive. We are looking at a comprehensive 2026 manual for human well-being called The Body Armour by Will Stanley.
It's a fantastic resource.
It really is. And our goal for you listening is to cut through the absolute avalanche of complex health trends out there. We want you to discover how to stop fighting your own biology.
Because it really can be simple.
Yeah, we're going to build a practical, science-backed manual to upgrade the masterpiece you already own using incredibly simple daily signals.
And to do that, we really have to start by looking at the control center.
The brain.
Right. Before you can modify the physical chassis, the body itself, you have to hack the onboard computer, meaning the brain and the autonomic nervous system.
Okay, let's unpack this because Stanley heavily references neuroplasticity. And assuming most of our listeners know the basics, like that the brain can rewire itself throughout our lifespan.
Sure, yeah.
What caught my eye was the nuance of how he actually triggers it. He suggests doing something totally odd, like juggling for 30 seconds or writing your name with your non-dominant hand.
It sounds kind of ridiculous, right?
It really does. Why is something so trivial? Is it really that simple to just juggle for half a minute and actually rewire our brain?
Well, it seems trivial on the surface, but neurologically, it's a highly specific mechanism.
Yep.
To rewire a neural pathway, your brain requires a specific neurochemical cocktail. When you perform a highly novel, slightly frustrating motor task...
Like writing with your left hand if you're right-handed?
Exactly. When you do that, your brain releases acetylcholine. And acetylcholine acts like a highlighter. It chemically marks the specific synapses that are firing in that exact moment.
Oh, wow. So you're flagging the area.
Right. Then, when you successfully complete the task, even if you do it poorly, you get a microspike of dopamine, which acts as the save button.
That is wild.
You are literally priming your nervous system for adaptation before you even try to change a larger habit.
That makes a lot of sense. You're basically opening the window of plasticity.
Exactly.
But once that window is open, who is actually driving the car? Stanley points out that most of us are stuck in the sympathetic nervous system state, right? The fight or flight mode.
Yeah, we are constantly revving the engine while parked, just sitting at our desks stressed out.
So how do we shift out of that?
Well, you have a direct biological lever to change gears, and it's the vagus nerve.
Okay.
The vagus nerve is the main information highway connecting your brainstem to your gut, your heart, and your lungs. And Stanley highlights this thing called the physiological sigh.
Right, the breathing technique.
Yes. You take a quick double inhale through the nose, followed by a long, slow exhale through the mouth.
I've heard of this, but what is actually happening inside the body when we do that? Like, why a double inhale specifically?
Well, your lungs are made up of millions of tiny air sacs called alveoli.
Okay.
And when you're stressed or even just sitting at a desk breathing shallowly all day, those little balloons start to collapse.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the first inhale fills the lungs, but that rapid second inhale mechanically forces those collapsed alveoli to pop back open.
Huh. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then the long exhale.
That does something even more profound. As you exhale slowly, your diaphragm moves up. This physically leaves less room for the heart in the chest cavity.
Wait, it changes the space for the heart.
It does. The heart actually shrinks a tiny bit, blood flows faster through it, and baroreceptors send a signal to your brainstem saying, hey, Heart rate is too fast.
No way. So the brain forces it to slow down.
Exactly. The brainstem responds by sending a signal down the vagus nerve to the sinoatrial node of the heart, physically forcing your heart rate to drop.
So you are mechanically hacking your own heart rate.
You really are. It drops cortisol and flips the switch to the parasympathetic rest and repair state in seconds.
That is incredible. And to make this actually stick, he talks about habit stacking.
Yes, crucial point.
Because relying on willpower is
Yeah.
biologically expensive.
Right.
It's prone to fatigue. You have to tie this to something existing.
Right, a habit you already do effortlessly.
I like to think of it like carving a riverbed. Like your morning routine, say brushing your teeth, is a deep, fast-moving river. It's totally effortless.
You don't even think about it.
Exactly. So habit stacking is just digging a tiny trench right next to that river. That way the water naturally flows into your new habit, like doing 3 physiological sighs, without needing to summon this massive thunderstorm of motivation.
That's a perfect way to visualize it. I mean, neurons that fire together wire together. By pairing the sigh with brushing your teeth, the existing neural pathway recruits the new one.
And he has a rule for tracking this, doesn't he?
Yeah, the only rule Stanley gives is to never break the chain twice.
Never break the chain twice.
Right. If the water misses the trench one day, fine, but 2 days in a row, and the trench starts to fill back in with dirt.
Okay, so we've primed the nervous system and calmed the internal wiring. But keeping that system calm requires syncing it to the outside world, right?
Absolutely. The internal clock has to match external reality.
Right. What's fascinating here is the biology of how our body actually tells time. Deep in the center of your brain is the pineal gland.
The master clock.
Yeah. It is the size of a grain of rice, but it runs your entire physiology. The catch is your pineal gland doesn't care about your alarm clock or your Google Calendar.
Not at all.
It only responds to light photons. Which brings us to morning light.
Such a huge piece of the puzzle.
Stanley argues that getting 5 to 10 minutes of outdoor sunlight within 30 minutes of waking up and doing it without sunglasses is the ultimate biological start engine button.
Yes, but it has to be outdoor light.
Right. He emphasizes outdoor light. Why does looking out a window not work? I mean, the sun's still coming in.
It's because of the physics of light. Glass filters out a massive portion of the lux, that's the intensity of the light. Even if it looks bright to your conscious mind, it's not enough for your brain.
Interesting.
Your eyes contain specialized cells called melanopsin ganglion cells. They aren't there to help you see shapes or colors. They exist purely to measure light intensity.
And they report directly to the clock.
Directly to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the brain's central clock. When those cells get hit with direct outdoor sunlight, they trigger a healthy, natural pulse of cortisol that just clears out all that sleep inertia.
But the real magic is that this morning light exposure also sets a timer for later that night, right?
Precisely. That morning photon exposure starts a roughly 14 to 16-hour countdown timer for your pineal gland to release melatonin.
The sleep hormone.
Exactly. It's a closed biological loop. If morning light is the start engine, you desperately need a proper shutdown sequence later on.
The evening dim down.
Right. Because if you stare at blue light emitting screens at 10 p.m., those same melanopsin cells send a signal to your brain saying, hey, the sun is still up.
Oh, man. So your brain thinks it's noon.
Yeah. Your pineal gland chemically believes it is daytime, and it completely halts melatonin production.
That explains so much about insomnia.
It really does. That's why Stanley prescribes a 90-minute evening dim down. Switching to red or warm lights removes the specific wavelengths of light that suppress melatonin, allowing your brain to naturally transition into recovery mode.
Okay, so the clock is synced. But, our environment also includes gravity. We're constantly being pulled down, hunched over those same screens all day.
Oh, the modern posture is terrible.
It really is. Stanley focuses heavily on fascia for this. That continuous web of connective tissue that wraps every muscle, bone, and organ in our bodies.
It's everywhere.
Right. And when we sit in a chronic C-curve all day, that fascia literally gets glued down. He recommends this Alexander technique cue, which is let the neck be free so the head can float forward and up.
It's a great cue. When you apply that specific thought, your spine naturally lengthens, your shoulders drop, and your rib cage isn't compressed anymore.
Which helps with breathing, I imagine.
Exactly. Your diaphragm actually has the physical space to execute that physiological sigh we talked about earlier.
That makes total sense. He also incorporates the Egascu 2-minute wall test to actively reset that fascial web.
Yes, a very practical tool.
You basically stand against a wall with your heels, calves, butt, shoulder blades, and the back of your head all touching the drywall, and you just hold it. I tried this. And it is startling how uncomfortable it is to just stand straight.
It really highlights our imbalances.
But how does simply standing against a wall actually change tight connective tissue, like biologically?
It works through a biological process called mechanotransduction.
Okay.
Fascia is piezoelectric, which means it responds to mechanical stress by generating a tiny electrical charge.
Wait, really? We generate electricity just by stretching?
Yeah. When you hold that aligned position against the resistance of the wall, you are creating sustained mechanical pressure. The specialized cells inside your fascia, called fibroblasts, feel that tension and they actually begin remodeling the tissue to match the new alignment.
That is fascinating. So you are manually rewriting your nervous system's proprioceptive map, like its internal sense of where your body is in space.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've built a solid, aligned chassis, and we've synced the onboard computer to the sun. But a high-performance vehicle also needs to handle extreme stress without breaking down.
Resilience is key.
Right. That brings us to ancient tuning and temperature forging. Stanley dives into acupressure, which sounds a bit esoteric at first glance.
It does sound a bit out there, but this is where modern neurology is validating thousands of years of ancient mapping.
How so?
Well, ancient healers mapped out meridians, describing them as energy highways. But today, peer-reviewed imaging shows us that these specific meridian points sit directly on top of massive peripheral nerve bundles and fascial intersections.
Oh, so it's anatomical.
Completely.
He highlights three major points in the book. There's LI4, which is located in the webbing between your thumb and index finger, notoriously effective for pain and headache relief.
A very common one.
Then PC6 on the inner wrist, used for calm and treating nausea. And ST36 just below the knee. For energy and immunity, you apply firm pressure for 30 to 60 seconds. But then, well, then he brings up ear seeds.
Yes. The ear seeds.
Taping tiny metallic or plant seeds to specific points on the outer ear. I have to admit, my placebo alarm was ringing pretty loud on that one.
I don't blame you at all. But consider the neuroanatomy for a second. The outer ear is one of the only places in the human body where a major branch of the vagus nerve...
Oh, the vagus nerve again.
Right. The auricular branch surfaces right under the skin, specifically around the concha, the hollow part of the ear.
Okay, I understand the proximity to the nerve. But does a tiny seed resting on the skin provide enough pressure to actually do anything biologically meaningful?
It does, and it's because of constant microstimulation. Your skin is packed with mechanoreceptors. Every single time you move your jaw, talk, or even lightly press the ear seed, it stimulates those receptors.
Wow.
And they send a continuous, gentle signal straight up that auricular branch into the nucleus tractus solitary in the brainstem.
So it's just a constant trickle of calm.
Exactly. Clinical studies measuring heart rate variability, which is the variance in time between your heartbeats, and our absolute best metric for stress resilience, show that this continuous stimulation significantly increases vagal tone over several days.
That's a fascinating mechanism. It's like leaving a tiny weight on a pressure switch.
That's a great analogy.
Stanley also pushes for contrast therapy to build resilience. Alternating hot and cold showers. For instance, 3 minutes of hot water followed by a 30-second cold blast. Now, a 30-second cold shower sounds miserable, but he explains it's actually a cellular workout.
It is. The scientific principle here is called hormesis.
Hormesis.
Right. It's a concept that a controlled, acute dose of stress actually upregulates your body's survival and repair mechanisms.
Okay, so a good stress.
Yes. When you expose your body to the heat, you trigger the release of heat shock proteins. Think of them as molecular mechanics. Their entire job is to roam around your cells and refold damaged or misfolded proteins back into their correct shapes.
And then you shock the system with the cold water. He says this activates brown fat. Now, I think most people hear fat and think of the stuff we actively want to lose. What is the difference here?
Right. Standard white fat is basically just biological Tupperware. It just stores excess energy.
Biological Tupperware. I like that.
But brown fat is entirely different. It gets its color because it is densely packed with iron-rich mitochondria. It is thermogenic tissue.
Meaning it creates heat.
Exactly. When the cold hits your skin, your thermoreceptors panic and tell the brain you are freezing. To prevent hypothermia, the mitochondria in your brown fat act like microscopic furnaces, rapidly burning through glucose and lipids to generate pure heat.
Wow. So regular cold exposure actually forces your body to recruit and build more of this highly metabolically active tissue.
Yes, it upgrades your metabolism.
Not to mention the psychological forging. Like,
Right.
by forcing yourself to stand in the freezing water while actively slowing your breathing, you are training your nervous system to stay calm under a massive spike of adrenaline.
It's pure mental training.
You're teaching your brain that you can experience an extreme stressor and still be entirely in control.
Which translates perfectly to how you handle a stressful email or a difficult conversation later that day. Your baseline for panic has been permanently raised.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because you can trigger cellular repair crews and build all this metabolic flexibility.
Yeah.
But if you don't provide the right raw materials to rebuild the tissue, you're basically just sending blueprints to an empty construction site. You need fuel.
We do. Nutrition is foundational.
Right. And Stanley introduces the 80-20 longevity plate. For anyone exhausted by hyper-restrictive diets, this is such a breath of fresh air.
It's very sustainable.
Half your plate is colorful vegetables, a quarter is high-quality protein, and a quarter is complex, smart carbs.
Yeah.
You adhere to this 80% of the time, and you allow for real life the other 20%.
This raises an important question, though. Why is this specific ratio so effective for longevity? It comes down to managing chronic inflammation. It actually mimics the dietary patterns of the blue zones, the longest-lived populations on Earth. You are providing massive amounts of micronutrients and amino acids without constantly spiking insulin levels.
And speaking of controlling inflammation, he points out some really specific biochemical pairings. Turmeric is widely known as an anti-inflammatory, right?
Yes, very popular.
But Stanley insists it must be paired with black pepper. Now, I always thought that was just a culinary pairing for flavor. Why does black pepper boost turmeric absorption by an alleged 2,000%?
It's actually a brilliant biological hack. The active compound in turmeric is curcumin, but your liver sees curcumin as a foreign substance and immediately uses an enzyme to metabolize it and excrete it before it can reach your tissue.
Oh, so your body just throws it out.
Basically. However, black pepper contains a compound called piperine. Piperine temporarily inhibits that specific liver enzyme, a process called glucuronidation.
So it blocks the liver from filtering it.
Exactly. By effectively blinding the liver's bouncer for a few hours, the curcumin slips into the bloodstream and circulates freely to calm systemic inflammation.
That is so cool. Stanley recommends mixing this into a golden milk drink for evening recovery.
It's a great nighttime ritual.
But all of these upgrades, the heat shock proteins, the neural rewiring, the anti-inflammatory fuel, none of it actually gets installed until you are unconscious. Deep sleep architecture is the garage where the actual maintenance happens.
Exactly. Sleep is not a passive state of doing nothing. It is a highly active, metabolically demanding biological state.
Yeah.
But the environment has to be precise.
Right. Stanley insists on keeping the bedroom cold, between 60 and 67 degrees Fahrenheit, or 15 to 19 degrees Celsius. Why so cold?
Because your core body temperature must drop by roughly 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit to initiate and sustain deep, slow-wave sleep. Yeah. If the room is too warm, the hypothalamus struggles to dump that core heat, and you just stay trapped in lighter sleep stages. And slow-wave sleep is critical. It's the only time your pituitary gland releases large pulses of human growth hormone, which is what physically rebuilds the fascial tears and muscle tissue we stress during the day.
And then what about REM sleep?
Following that physical repair, REM sleep is when your brain physically clears out metabolic waste and consolidates the neural pathways, like that new juggling skill we talked about, into long-term memory.
Okay, so what does this all mean? We've covered a massive amount of biology today. Neuroplasticity, light photons, fascial mechanotransduction, hormesis, UGT enzyme inhibition, and sleep architecture.
It's a lot of science.
It sounds like a full-time job. How does a normal, busy person actually implement this without it becoming a stressful hour-long chore?
That is the ultimate value of the Body Armor. Stanley distills all of this complex science into the 10-minute daily armor protocol.
For you listening, this means you don't need to overhaul your entire life. You don't need to join an expensive biohacking clinic. You just need to stop sending your body conflicting biological signals. It breaks down into 3 tiny checkpoints.
Right. In the morning, you spend 5 to 6 minutes setting the system. You step outside for that photon exposure to start the melatonin timer. You do a few physiological sighs to oxygenate the tissue, and you do some dynamic movement to wake up the mechanoreceptors in your joints.
Just a few minutes to basically tell your biology, the day has started, we are alert.
Exactly. Unequivocally telling it to wake up.
Then midday, you take a 2-minute reset, because stress builds up silently, right?
Yeah.
You sit at your desk, you let your neck be free so the head floats forward and up, ungluing the fascia, and you do 60 seconds of slow breathing.
You interrupt the sympathetic nervous system before it boils over.
And finally, the evening downgraded. 2 to 3 minutes of dimming the lights, creating that cool environment we talked about, and doing extended exhales to signal the transition to repair mode.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, biology relies on predictable rhythms. Consistency beats intensity every single time. Doing these 10 minutes of targeted signaling daily actually alters your genetic expression far more effectively than enduring a grueling 2-hour routine just once a month.
It puts you completely back in the driver's seat. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a fascinating look over the horizon. Because the final chapter of Stanley's manual moves beyond just maintaining the vehicle and introduces true cellular rejuvenation. He talks about zombie cells.
The scientific term is senescent cells. As our cells divide over a lifespan, they endure DNA damage. Eventually, to prevent turning cancerous, a damaged cell will hit a kill switch and stop dividing.
Makes sense.
Usually, the immune system clears it out. But as we age, some of these cells refuse to die. They enter senescence. They just sit in the tissue, secreting a toxic cocktail of inflammatory cytokines known as SSP factors.
It's like having a rusted-out bolt in your engine that is actively spreading rust to all the pristine parts around it. It just accelerates the aging of the entire organ.
It's a major driver of aging.
But modern longevity science has discovered senolytics. These are compounds that actively hunt down and destroy these zombie cells. Stanley notes that highly accessible natural compounds like quercetin and ficetine, which are found in high concentrations in apples, onions, and strawberries, act as mild senolytics.
Yes, especially when paired with brief periods of fasting. When you restrict nutrients, your body stops prioritizing growth and switches to a conservation mode called autophagy.
And what did that do?
It starts looking for damaged parts to recycle for energy. The senolytics provide the chemical signal to target those stubborn zombie cells and force them into apoptosis, which is programmed cell death.
It's a profound paradigm shift.
Yeah.
You aren't just trying to slow down the rust. You are actively giving your biology the signal to clean house, clear the damage, and functionally grow younger.
It really proves that our biological destiny is far more malleable than we ever thought.
So we leave you with this challenge. What if you stopped fighting the vehicle that carries you through life? What one tiny signal, maybe a physiological sigh before a meeting, a 5-minute warning walk without sunglasses, or a blast of cold water at the end of your shower, what will you change for your masterpiece today? Remember, you hold the keys to a state-of-the-art sports car. It's time to stop ignoring the check engine light and start driving it the way it was engineered to perform. Keep diving deep.